welcome again to Records and Lynda Rose. Lynda's got an announcement to make, and it's a prayer day this coming Wednesday. And boy, do we need it as a nation. Are you specifying certain things that we can pray for or against?
Yes, I mean the background to this, Rodney, is actually quite specific. The Epstein files were released about what 3 weeks ago now. The latest tranche of them. And I remember early in the morning reading the news report on my computer and just having this feeling of absolute horror came over me. It was weird and mixed with terror. It was a really peculiar feeling because there was nothing very much in the reports. It was just more of the same, basically. These files have been released and it shows. So I couldn't understand why I was feeling like this, but this feeling kind of hung over me all day. And it was just awful. And so in the evening, I said to the Lord, what's going on here? Why am I feeling like this? And I felt him say to me really clearly, you have been in the presence of a spirit of paedophilia that has been unleashed over the nation and that is growing stronger. And it will grow stronger, with release of these files. And its aim is to ensnare more and more people and to destroy. And you are to raise, and this was a crunch bit, you are to raise a shield of protection over the nation. And that felt like, a direct command from the Lord saying, put in place a shield of protection against a spirit of paedophilia. And that has been the origin for this call to prayer on the 18th. And I don't see this day as actually sort of ending anything. I think this is actually a sort of big problem, and it's more the start of a move to put in place this shield of protection over the nation. And I've thought about this so much, Rodney, since just feeling this. And it's really strange that on the 18th, there are so many things coming together. We've got um, vote in the House of Lords about the criminalisation of abortion. And in Scotland, the Scottish MPs are going to be deciding whether or not to introduce assisted suicide. And we've got a rally outside Parliament the same day, um, protesting the appointment of an Islamophobia czar. And there seems so many things that are actually, I mean, they're all, good things, well, not, no, they're bad things, but that require a lot of prayer. And again, I just feel the Lord saying, well, all these things, they're just manifestation of something that's going on here, and that some pillars have been driven into the nation, some real sort of spiritual pillars. And what we see with all these various things that are happening are outworkings of their influence. And what we are being asked to do now, under the Lord's direction, and this is important, I think it'd be very silly to do this without the Lord's direction, but under the Lord's direction, it's an assault on the command center, if you like, to take out the pillars. And the spirit of paedophilia is one of those pillars. And it's very closely allied to a spirit of death. And I think we are being called to break the power of the spirit, to break this pillar in order to free people. And as we do that, to put in place this shield of protection. And it's then that we will start to see a real sea change in this nation, I think.
We're talking in Christian spiritual language. For
We
those
are.
that are a little bit lost at this, either because they're not Christians or they don't do it,
Mm.
let's stick to simple observational happenings. In the heavenlies, there was a war initially between God and Satan. Now, people seem to laugh at Satan these days. Well, believe you me, he's laughing at the people that laugh at him. But Satan was cast down to earth. Now, God is still in charge, but Satan's got a lot of power. Now, this may seem a bit way off for people that are not used to this, but I think as a church, we've allowed this to creep up on us over the years. And we don't believe in fundamentals like we used to, not even the church one day
Mm.
has to say. Now, if it is a spiritual demise that we're in Britain, we have to get out of it spiritually. You're not going to get any government of any hue saying, well, I do this with the NHS, I do that with immigration, because that's not the final solution, is it?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is actually a spiritual issue at base, and it's important that we wake up to what's going on here. Actually, you say people they dismiss the idea of Satan or evil at work or whatever, but look around. Everybody is saying it's such a mess where we are. Why is this happening? And they look to sexual exploitation, sexual abuse, they look to knife crime, they look to the family disintegrating, they look to the mental health stats and all the rest of it. And they know that something has gone badly wrong. And they know too, I think, that there is nothing that the government can do that makes anything any better. In fact, everything they try and do seems to make it infinitely worse. So it's all very well people ignoring God and Satan, but in fact, that's what we're living with. And it's when people will recognize this and come back to God, that's when we can actually start to tackle these problems at source. So, okay, people might, for the last 100 years, they've been very happily saying, we can do it our way and all the rest of it, but their way has not been good. And the church has largely gone along with it because it's wanted to stay culturally relevant and all the rest of it, which arguments are actually tripe, if I may put it like that, Rodney, without causing too much offense. The church has not been faithful to its call, which is to guard the truth and to guard the flock. And a lot of the problems that we've got in society today are because the church has failed. So the church, big time, it's got to rediscover what it's all about. It's got to rediscover the faith and it's got to repent where it's gone wrong. And it's got to start taking its call seriously to look after the children of God, to bring them back, to care for the wounded, and to just, to fight off the wolves, basically. That's where we're at now. And I know it all sounds terribly spiritual, but I'm sorry, these are the realities.
Well, we
You know,
tried the other doesn't work.
yeah.
Um, Nowhere more illustrated than the by-election. Now, by-elections are one-offs, and we
Mm,
shouldn't be jumping over the moon because this party's won and that party, etc. But Gorton and Denton raised up a lady, Hannah Spencer of the Green Party, that got up to all sorts of stuff, but it highlighted where we are as a nation, really. And now we've got to say, whoa, where's this Trojan horse come from? It is a Trojan horse. And, we hear things about sectarianism. We read things about racial politics, and we've got to be careful. But we got a situation whereby people were being schooled to vote. If you were a Muslim, the boss, husband, father, whoever said, right, girls, you will vote this way. Form an orderly queue. Get in
mm.
there, which is illegal.
It is.
And there was some dodgy balloting anyway. Whether it would have overturned the decision, we don't know. Probably not, because there are other ways of skinning the old goose, aren't there? And certainly
Mm.
leaflets in Urdu and any other language which suited the occasion were out there. It is calculated that there
It,
are 50 other constituencies in the United Kingdom very similar to Gorton and Denton. Now, I know the area well, being a Mancunian, and you drive through Gorton, which is a very poor area, which is where the action took place. If they were allowed to be separate constituencies, no way would Denton, which is more middle class still, not really middle class, would have voted for the ultra left. But it was very cleverly orchestrated. And we find now that a great many votes came from ladies between the ages of 20 and 40.
yeah, you're absolutely right, Rodney. I think Hannah Spencer, she deliberately stirred up racial hatred, racial tension, because all her, the leaflets that she brought out, she had herself photographed standing in front of a mosque with one of the kafirs over her head. So, this was immediately saying, I'm with you guys, pro-Islam. And she was basically saying that Labour have failed you, but I'm going to stand up for pro-Palestinian rights. And that's why they voted for her. She didn't, by the way, interestingly, tell them about her other policies, the green policies, like um, legalizing drugs and various other things, her abortion policies. And I think it's been a little bit of a rude awakening to Muslims since the election to discover what it is she actually stands for. But anyway, that by the by, that's what she did. She stirred up the racial vote, and you're absolutely right. There was a huge amount of this illegal voting that went on, um, that was recognised at the polling stations, and nothing has been done about it. But I think one of the big dangers is that what she's done has encouraged again the Muslim vote to start putting forward their own candidates and to make a Muslim party. And I think we will see this in the not too distant future. And of course, historically, Labour, and as it now appears, the Greens, have exploited the Muslim vote because it's what kept them in power. But Muslims now, I think, are getting a little bit, they're not trusting that anymore. And they're getting stronger and they're going to make their own parties. And if they do that, I think we should be alarmed because they, by no stretch of the imagination, can they be seen as supporting any type of democracy. And Islam demands total compliance with Sharia law. And there are very, very severe penalties for non-compliance, as we all know. There are very severe penalties for people who are not Muslim. And that too is written into the Quran. So the more we encourage this movement within the UK and allow Muslim influence to take hold, we run the risk of becoming an Islamic state that will be actively hostile to Christians and other faith groups. Um, I mean, I don't wish to be alarmist, but you look at other areas of the world that are Islamic, and you hear about these Muslim groups going from door to door, knocking on the door and saying, "Are you a Christian?" And the person inside will say, "Yes," and they get shot. And in the Quran, death to non-believers is actually set down, it's encouraged. Now, okay, people in the West tend to say, oh, well, that's a product of the cultural times and all the rest of it. It's not relevant today. They're not like that. But you look at this growing problem of what is called Muslim extremism. Look what happened in France with the Charlie Hebdo cartoons. Look what happens, everywhere. And under Islam, this is not seen as an extremist reaction. This is just Islam. And this is the problem that we run into if we encourage this to take root in our own country. It is the beginnings, if we allow it, of the death of democracy. The beginnings, if we allow it, of that respect for other human beings that is truly tolerant. And in Britain, over the years, we've been known as a Christian country, but we've also been very tolerant and respectful for others. When you think about, Karl Marx, who was pretty much hated by everybody, he came here to the UK and he lived here. He wrote, his major work here in the UK. And we never agreed with him. We never endorsed what he said, but we allowed it because we have always respected the rule of law and the right of others to say what they think and to believe as they feel led. Islam does not hold to those same principles. And that's why the Gorton and Denton by-election is so worrying, because we have just seen an extreme of sectarian voting. And it is this that is opening the door to this wider situation that should make us very, very afraid. And we're already seeing there are certain areas in this country which are becoming no-go. A couple of weeks ago in Whitechapel, the UKIP wanted to put on a walk for Jesus, which sounds lovely. I love the idea of a walk for Jesus. But the Muslim community were up in arms about this and they protested and they said, Whitechapel is Muslim. We will not allow a march for Jesus. And they kicked up a fuss. And the march got banned. And you know why it got banned? Because last year, when a similar march was held, the Muslim community violently attacked the marchers. And the authorities, the Met, were worried now that this would happen again. There would be a really violent reaction that they would not be able to handle. So, hey presto, the Muslims got away with having their own way and not allowing the march. This is happening more and more. We are seeing a growing antagonism and aggression towards Christians and other faith groups, especially Jewish groups. And this is alien to the UK. We should not be allowing it, Rodney. We are a Christian country. We are still a Christian country. We have to recover those values and we have to say no.
And in its simplest state, I look back at the last census and it actually said that 1/3 of the Muslim population want a caliphate. 1/3.
Yeah.
Now, caliphate means their own country, their own law, Sharia law. I said at the time when this came out, wow, if 30% have said yes on the doorstep or wherever that they want this, you can double that because there'll be plenty of others that are frightened of saying that, but believing that. And this last week it's come out 70% actually in a modern survey want a caliphate. Can I give you another word for caliphate? It's treason.
It is within the context of Britain, yes. It would make us an Islamic state with all that that entails. And that is very hostile to our values and our identity and culture. It would destroy British culture if they ever achieve that aim.
And meanwhile, our Prime Minister and our King are eulogizing
Mm.
about the benefits that Islam has given to this country. What is that about? Perhaps that says it all as well. Charles being the leader of the Anglican Church, now clashing with the Greens that clearly today have said no more, no more C of E should have nothing to do with the state.
Yes, one does wonder what is going on here. I think, with Starmer, I long thought that he exploited Muslim support because it is what keeps him in power. But I don't know, he seems to promote um, their wants, their values over that of the rest of Britain. And I think that is really alarming. And you do ask yourself why that he was hosting an iftar in the House of Commons only last week, and apparently stood up and said that so serious of things actually. But he said to these Muslims, "You are the new Britain," and that he would support them, and he assured them that there was no way that we would become involved in the Iran war, which he seems to be holding up to. But you think, well, why is he so supportive of a belief system that is so hostile to our heritage, our traditions, and our identity? It just seems bizarre.
Well, it is because, in one sense, don't forget, he's an atheist.
I know.
And,
And
and
his wife is Jewish,
yeah,
and yet Islam
great.
is so hostile to Jews.
Yes.
Again, it is it's very, very puzzling.
But it would be if Satan is involved in all this.
Well, yes, that's true.
Finally, I want to mention in all this how, as Christians, obviously, number one, the prayer, especially on Wednesday, what can we do when we've got a small voice to try and point out to the United Kingdom and many other countries in Europe in a similar state? What should we say? Should we get into politics? Should we become a
Oh.
political animal? Or should we just stick to the Christian message?
The Christian message actually at root is profoundly political. When you look at the Old Testament, um, so often the Jews were being upbraided by God because they were failing to in their social duty towards everybody. You look at Amos, you look at Hosea. There was a call to pursue justice, to support justice, and that is profoundly, at essence, a part of the Christian call. So, in a sense, we don't have a choice about that. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to let the world go by. I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to live like this. I'm not going to bother about anybody else." Because that's not what God calls us to. He calls us to care for the rest of humanity and to be just in all our dealings. To tell the truth is a basic thing, and not to exploit others. So we do have to become involved in politics, but we have to be involved from the right base. And I've come across so many Christians in politics who said things like, well, I'm just going to keep my head down for a bit because I really need to get myself established and get a position. And when I've done that, then I'll start to put forward the Christian ideas. Then I'll, support pro-life things. Then I'll, whatever. But I can't at the moment because I just won't get there. And of course, if and when they do get there, it changes because, oh, well, yes, I'm still working hard at this. But if I say anything, I'm going to lose position. So they never do. I'm sorry, that is not good enough. Christians need to be involved in politics because of their obedience to what Christ is saying. And they need to be prepared to be unpopular and to speak out from the word go. We need a Christian voice in politics. It's the only thing that's actually going to save us now. But it has to be a voice that is in obedience to God and that has integrity. But there are no spectators in Christianity. You can't just sit back and think, well, I'll watch this, but I'm going to keep quiet. I'm going to keep my head down because Christ is going to come back. It's all going to be okay. So if I just keep my head down till then, it doesn't matter what happens to the rest of humanity. That's not what Christ says. He said before he was taken up to heaven, go and make disciples of all nations. And that's our call ahead of his return. Go out and save the lost. Look after them. It's an active call. It is not go and sit at home, do your knitting. Just keep your head down. You'll be okay and wait till I come back. He never said that. So we are called to be involved. We are called to make a difference. We are called to stand for the truth and to not back down. And most of all, we are called to love and respect others.
When one thinks of the attributes, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean, of Islam and compare it with Christianity. If you were a salesman, let's be pushy a bit and say, if you were a great evangelist
Mm.
and were selling Christianity, or if you were a great mullah selling Islam, honestly, there's no comparison, is there?
There's not. I mean, Islam at root is a religion of conquest, of submission, of judgment. If you put a foot out of line, you're not going to be saved. There's no love there. Christianity is a religion where God reaches out in love. We know we're all fallen, we know we're all a mess, and it is God reaching out to save us and to help us, to put us in the right way. It is a religion where God brings peace and fulfillment and joy. Allah doesn't do that. Allah doesn't care as far as I can make out. He just wants to be worshipped and obeyed.
Interesting thoughts, Lynda. Thank you so much. And we won't leave it as long next time. We'll see you very shortly.
Thank you, Rodney. Good to see you.